Hello, fantasy sports owners. I'm your host, Brian Lyles, for this edition of the Fantasy Sports News and World Report. And sadly to say, this is the final month of the NFL season. So we're going to discuss this. It's a code blue, ladies and gentlemen. If you're a doctor, you would understand what a code blue is, meaning that we got to fix some teams. And there's a lot of teams out there that need some fixing. And I can't do this alone. But you're kind of used to the fact of showing a fantasy sports game update. But today, this is serious business. So if you want to see more of the fantasy sports game updates, go to the YouTube site at youtube.com/FSNWRTV72, where Andre and Susanna will give you all the information you need to update your fantasy. Anyway, with me today is a panel of gentlemen here. Some of them have some extra allegiance to their teams, and with me today over here is Langley Wiggins, better known as Secret Source.
No one on the corner has swagger like us.
We should keep those things. Anyway, next to him is Mr. Michael Richmond. He's been on the show many, many times. He is a co-host of the DC Sport Blitz on ESPN 840 in Charlottesville, Virginia, and also a legendary author of the Redskin Encyclopedia. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
And at the far end, it took a lot of time. We had to get him out of the Justice League Tower on the moon, but he's back, and he's the producer and host of the Fantastic Four, Mr. Ulysses E. Campbell. How you doing?
Thank you very much for having me, Brian.
No problem. Gentlemen, I should say doctors, we got to fix some teams here. First off, we got to start with is the Detroit Lions. Granted, they kind of did some of their own fixing. They got rid of Matt Millen, who, yes, 7 years of, let's say some very interesting picks. And the list goes like this. Everyone dating back to 2000, and some of these guys are still with the team. Who's still with the team is Jeff Backus, who's a tackle, and he was drafted in 2001. And their last two picks in 2006 was Ernie Sims, who's an outside linebacker, and surprisingly enough, Calvin Johnson, who's in his second year out of Georgia Tech. The most well-notable picks, Joey Harrington. Gone. He's now with the Saints. Kevin Jones, running back, who was traded to the Bears. Roy Williams, who recently just traded to the Cowboys. And now Mike Williams, and his last team he was with was the Titans, and he's out. And their first Matt Millen pick was Stockard McDougal, and he's out of football.
Langley, a name like that.
Langley, I mean, the history of the Lions, granted, we're taping this before Thanksgiving, and granted, we know we're going to be seeing them. How bad is this team, and can they be fixed?
Unfortunately, we will be seeing them on Thanksgiving. Now, they're bad, but from what I've seen of them, you can go back to last year, though, and they got off to a hot start, and then they took a belly dive. But, you know, this year I've seen them in a few games. And if you look at some of their losses, they haven't lost by much. So they've been competitive. I would say that getting rid of Matt Millen was probably the best thing to do for that team, because by getting rid of Roy Williams, they're freeing up some room in the cap, and they have, 2 picks coming to them. So
they got 3 in the one deal, right?
3? Okay,
I think
3.
they got 3 from the Cowboys.
And they'll probably finish with the first pick overall. Right. So things are going to come slowly, but the way they've been playing, it has been competitive. So it can be fixed. It's still going to take some time, though.
All right, Mike, John Kitna, last year, it looked like an interesting year for the Lions. They started off they ended the year 7-9, but they started off really exciting. John Kitna made that vow. They say, we'll win 10, we'll win 10. And then now he's benched. They bring in Dante Culpepper. I mean, the Lions, it's sort of like a carousel. One comes in, one goes off. I mean, quarterbacking, is that really a need now? Or do they need a leader in that position, or do you feel like, okay, whoever runs this team can run it?
They definitely need a leader at quarterback. Every team does. I'll say this team is broken, but it's not beyond repair. And I think they can rebuild the team through draft picks. I think that should be the primary tool for every team to look toward that's at the bottom of the league. And by bringing in these 3 picks in the Roy Williams deal, make other trades, get more picks. They'll have probably the highest pick in the draft next year. So I think that's the way it needs to be done. At the same time, you need to be making very, very smart decisions in the front office. Matt Millen certainly didn't cut it. I like Martin Mayhew, former Redskin player. I gotta like him. He has a Super Bowl ring too, and I think he can share that with the rest of the Lions players. He could say, hey, this is what I have. If you want one of these, you listen to me.
Okay. Ulysses, ending on this with the Lions, do you think, I mean, what would you think is the beginning point of fixing this team?
Well, I think that the first step they took, firing Matt Millen, was an excellent one. I had felt for a long time as if this guy was just an anchor on this franchise. And back when the Lions fired Steve Mariucci a couple of years ago, I remember thinking, oh, well, that was a mistake. They should have gotten rid of the frickin' team president instead. Now, I know the team can be fixed because, hey, even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a Super Bowl. Let's face it, they were the sorriest thing going for many years. So while I would have, I mean, conventional wisdom says, no, it can't be done, but even a team like the Lions can be fixed. Now, what it's going to take is a lot of commitment, probably some time, need a couple of more players. You know, can you get Wayne Fontes back as coach? You know, I mean, you know, what's Barry Sanders doing these days?
You realistically think that Wayne Fontes would?
Well, no, I'm just.
You were being facetious.
Exactly. Well, that's only because the last success that team really enjoyed was under Wayne Fontes.
Right.
How many years ago?
1999 was their last appearance in a playoff game. I
And
mean,
speaking of Tampa Bay, right now, those old timers are probably saying, keep losing.
speaking of old timers, the Raiders. Yes, the Raiders. And speaking of the old timer, Al Davis. I think he's like that, you know, Mr. from The Simpsons. You know? I mean, he's just like bitter. Yes, Smithers. Yes,
He's a dinosaur.
Yeah, bitter old man that just doesn't want to, you know, realize that, like, look, you need to give up this team and just let some young guy run it. He's gotten rid of, you know, he has now on his 5th coach in 6 years, and the record is hideous. I mean, ever since they let go John Gruden had a record of 40-28 after he left with the Raiders. The combined total of Bill Callahan, who lasted for 2 years, Norv Turner lasted for a year and a half, Art Shell for that 1 year, and we kind of discussed that briefly where I felt that he should not have gotten fired, Lane Kiffin, who got out of this year, and currently Tom Cable. Their combined record is 33-70. And I'm like, okay, granted, you want to bring that Raider dynasty back, but Al, I don't think so, unless, you know, you lead the team. But how would you fix the Raiders?
Well, now you know. It's funny because the Raiders are one of those clubs. I don't know what can be done. This is going to be terrible. I'm just going to say it anyway. I think the first thing that needs to happen is there needs to be an ownership change. And of course, the only way that's going to happen is they carry this man out feet first. So that's the first thing that's got to happen because he's just not objective. And with so many owners who are making these business decisions, I wonder if it was somebody else, how long ago Al Davis would have fired himself. You know, it's like, oh, you know, in fact, we were talking about the same kind of thing with my boy down there in Dallas. It's like if he had a general manager, that guy would have been fired a long time ago. So I think at least the Raiders have better players, you know, because they just went to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. So, you know, if you just change it, tinker with them a few things, they might not be as bad off as, say, like the Detroit Lions.
Okay. Mike, let me ask quickly for this. Among the 5 coaches that were with this team, which one of you would have kept so that way this team could at least have some stability?
Who succeeded Norv Turner?
Art Shell.
Probably Art Shell.
Why is that?
He, in previous stints, wasn't he somewhat successful?
Yeah.
He had coached the Raiders in past years, isn't that correct? And he had some success with the organization. So I would think that, again, Al Davis is too much of a micromanager, and I think he's way too involved. I mean, we all agree on that. He's got to step aside if he wants this team to be successful. Speaking of coaches, you can't imagine an owner and a coach being more far apart in terms of personality than Norv Turner and Al Davis.
Let's go stay in the Bay Area with your Niners.
Why you gotta go to me with that?
Look, this is exclusive. Yeah, exclusively for you. They got rid of Mike Nolan. Granted, I felt like he was the wrong choice to be coach anyway. Are you happy with Mike Singletary right now?
Well, I'm pleased at how the team is playing now. As far as Mike Singletary, he has gotten the players' attention because he has this dominance for personality. I don't like to drop your pants. Brother, you gotta keep your pants on in front of the club. But I did like the way he handled the situation with Vernon Davis. And I think that the team they're competitive. Yeah, even though they got off to a terrible start against Dallas, they came back and made it close. They're going to show competitiveness. I think if they win a few games and stay competitive, I think he's the guy for the team.
Okay. Quickly on this one, and granted, we all know the destruction of the Cincinnati Bengals, and it starts off with, Chad, I changed my name to whenever I feel like it, Johnson, to Carson Palmer's injury, which dates back to their 2006 playoff game. And then Marvin Lewis. I mean, let's start off with this with Marvin Lewis. Mike, starting with you, do you feel like, is he the blame for this, and should he be fired?
I think he's largely to blame for what has happened. I think he's one of the longest tenured coaches in the NFL. And I think given that their best season, correct me if I'm wrong, was 11-5 in 2005, and they really haven't done anything since then. Of course, they've had the injuries, Carson Palmer. I think his time has come. I think that they should fire him. Now, there are other problems on the team, such as Chad Johnson, and they've had other problem children that have...
Yes, they are children. That's correct.
that have had run-ins off the field.
All right, Ulysses, quickly, do you think that... I just feel like this is a team, granted, Mike's saying in fact it's Marvin Lewis should be let go, but I personally feel it's bad management, and the Bengals have been a bad managed team. Where do you see fit about that? Do you feel like, is he correct by saying let go Marvin Lewis and management will work itself out?
Well, sometimes situations exist where some new blood can be helpful. The Bengals, I don't know. I was kind of surprised a couple of years ago when they had that playoff game against Pittsburgh and Palmer got hurt. I really felt like that changed the whole trajectory for that team at that point. I think that they had a real serious chance to go to the Super Bowl that year. Palmer gets hurt. I mean, sure, John Kitna came in and made a game of it, but they just haven't been the same. They came back the following year and started out kind of okay, but then just tailed off. I would hate to see Marvin Lewis lose his job. I mean, I'm always in favor of African Americans having an opportunity to coach, but he is one of the longest tenured coaches. Right. He's had an opportunity, and evidently he hasn't been able to turn this thing around. And they've had a lot of problems with these guys. I mean, people getting arrested and all these run-ins with the law and all that. So at some point, you got to have somebody who's able to put their foot down and say, look, we're a football team. Let's get back to playing football. Let's concentrate on the field as opposed to all this crap going on off the field. And that definitely starts with the head coach.
Quickly, the Rams, how are you fixing that team?
Move them back to L.A.
And on that note, we'll be right back. We got our NFL picks, and ladies and gentlemen, granted, it may be 2-1, but the Ravens and Redskins, it won't be that easy. See you soon.
Hi, I'm Fantasy Sports World Woman Danielle. Stay tuned for more fantasy sports news and World Report. Woo!
Every morning you have a date to meet new friends and old friends that speak a new language.
¡Fantástico!
Veme has kids shows in Spanish. Plaza Sésamo, Franny's Feed, Rubba Dubbers, Henry's World, Baby Triplets, Hoops, Percy, and Lunar Gym.
¡Excelente!
It's the best way to learn Español. It's Veme.
Welcome back to the second half of the Fantasy Sports News and World Report.
We're back here on the Fantasy Sports News and World Report. I'm your host, Brian Lyles, and again with me are fellow doctors here to fix your fantasy sports teams. But now we're going to fixing the teams and see if they can do well to finish off the season on a high note. But first off, we got to handle some local business. Ravens and Skins. This time around, for the first time ever, the Skins are going up to Baltimore. The first time in about, let's say, over 20 years or so since the Colts left. With the two Skins fans here, starting with you, Ulysses. Who do you think will actually win this game?
Well, I'm still smarting from my prediction of the Redskins beating the Patriots last time you asked me on this. You know, I'm not objective when it comes to the Redskins. I fear what's going to happen when they go up to Baltimore because Baltimore is such a hot defensive team. And I have not been particularly impressed at how my club is playing right now. As much as I would like to go out on a limb and say the Redskins are going to win, I get the feeling that the Ravens are going to edge them in that game. So my official pick for that game is going to be the Ravens.
Okay. Mike.
Got to be the Redskins. The Redskins are 0-3 in primetime games thus far this season. They're due for a victory under the lights. Now, in addition to that, the Redskins have what I think is the best secondary in the NFL. I think they'll shut down Ravens quarterback Joe Flacco. And if they continue emphasizing the ground game, I think that they'll be able to run on the Ravens.
Okay. Langers.
It's like this. The Redskins are going to bring the knives. The Ravens are going to bring the guns. You can't bring a gun to you can't bring a knife to a gunfight. Ravens.
All right. Got to go with B more. I mean, granted, they showed some huge vulnerability against the Giants. And granted, good running game is the key factor, but they've yet to give up a 100-yard rusher. And likelihood, if you stop the running game, you know, and make Jason Campbell pass, and granted, I don't think he's ready to be in an overused passer. And the Ravens smartly has an offense that he can use, and Joe Flacco has benefited of just handling the ball, let the running game work, and if that works, then go to the passing game. So, and granted, the number one thing is defense win championships, and they will win this game. We'll go Ravens. Anyway, next game. Yeah. Niners. Hey, we're in DC, so I got to say that. Anyway, Niners and Dolphins. How do you feel about the Super Bowl 18 rematch?
Who's at home?
It'll be Dolphins.
Super Bowl 18 was the Redskins.
Oh,
and
I'm sorry.
Super Bowl
19
rematch.
Right. I'm sorry. Get that? Yes. Get schooled by a bunch of Redskins historians. Niners and Dolphins.
Yeah, I've been picking games every week, and I never can seem to get the Dolphins. If I pick them to lose, they win. If I pick them to win, they lose. They do those gadget plays, those trick plays, and it'd be interesting to see what week is that anyway.
That would be week. Let's see, we're down to week 13, I believe.
It's going to be interesting to see what they look like down the stretch. I'm going to go with my Niners in the upset.
Okay. Mike.
I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I really like the job that first-year coach Tony Sparano is doing there. General manager Bill Parcells. I think they have the Dolphins headed in the right direction now, and they're playing in Miami. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins.
Well, before I answer this question, I just want to throw this in because I could see, okay, Redskins and Ravens. Redskins, these are both kind of teams that are in contention. Why are we even picking this game? I was like, why? That having been said, I'm going to go with Miami.
Okay. And I'm going to go for your Niners. because I just think that the Wildcat that Wildcat offense has kind of been predictable now, and I think the Niners have probably seen it, and they're going to use it, and they're going to see it in the films that it is stoppable.
Yep. And like I said, the Niners have been playing competitive, so they can be an upset team to anybody trying to make the playoffs down the stretch. Even the Redskins last game of the season.
I knew you were going to say
That's going to be a very, very tough weekend for the Redskins.
Yeah.
I will admit that.
Well,
if we need the victory.
yeah.
I think we're going to need it. We will be haunted, and we are being haunted by that loss to the Rams earlier this season.
Well, speaking of, let's go further down, especially one of the teams that needs help, Detroit. And granted, the New Orleans thing just literally surprised everybody with their 51-point performance against the Packers. But let's say Reggie Bush is still not fully back yet, but likely he'll maybe back in this game. So, Mike, starting with you, Detroit and New Orleans, who do you think will
You
win
got to
it?
go with the Saints. I mean, the Lions are just beyond repair this season. Now, I do want to touch on the question, are they the worst team in NFL history? Absolutely not. There have been many other teams in past years that have done worse than the Lions. There were teams in the 1940s that barely scored any points. So they're not the worst team in NFL history, but I'm not going to say they're going 0-16 this year, but they're not going to beat the Saints.
Langley.
I'm with Ulysses. How are you picking these?
It's part of the theme. We're trying to help these teams see if they can do something or not.
Oh, that's right. We're doctors. I forgot.
Code blue, stat.
I can't help Detroit in this one.
Okay, Ulysses.
Who that say they gonna beat them Saints? The Saints.
All right. You know what? As much as I would like to say the Saints have also have hear me out. They always have this weird problem of, okay, one name, they're doing great, everything looks good for him, and then all of a sudden they just drop off. Drew Brees, he'll have a great game like he did on that Monday night game, and even he had a couple other 300-plus games, but then the following couple of weeks, he sort of tails off. And the running game, it's a running by committee. It's Deuce McAllister, Thomas Pierre. Like I said, Reggie Bush is out, so likely he'll be back by then. I feel this will be the Lions game to finally get one victory. And that's the one, and the sad part of this will be the killer for the Saints, because this will probably be the game that knocks them out of the playoff hunt.
Now, is it Drew Brees leading the NFL right now in passing yardage?
He's leading all that.
But you're saying he disappears.
He sometimes disappears so much, and it is like, and also if for a guy like him, granted he looks great fantasy wise, but sometimes all that, he's like that, the one most hated person named Favre. He just overdoes it a bit, and sometimes his performance kind of ruins the Saints' chances to actually win.
Well, I think what you're looking at is he turns the ball over a lot. I mean, he's still going to throw for
he's still going to do it.
plus.
Yes.
He's still going to throw like 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
You're gonna get your
But
fantasy points.
Yeah.
He turns the ball over.
Right. So
He should have been your fantasy quarterback.
yeah.
But having the Saints, they've won, what, 2 in a row? 3 in a row?
So far, but they need
3 out of the last
Yeah.
4.
They were
count them
they were
out.
just a machine in that game against the Packers.
Yeah.
Monday night game against the Packers.
Packers were nowhere to be found. But let's go up to the Battle of Ohio 2, Browns and Bengals. Langley, starting with you, who do you think will win this one?
You're really making us play surgeon. Huh? I'm going to go with the Bengals. I mean, much like the Niners, most of their losses have been close. I mean, they were they took the Giants in overtime and just barely lost that game.
You hear that, Donovan? There is overtime.
And they tied the Eagles.
They
Which
tied
is
the
no
Eagles.
great shakes, but
Dallas just barely beat Cincinnati. So I'm going to go with the Bengals.
Okay, Mike?
I'm going to go with the Browns. I think that the Browns have too many weapons on offense, and the Bengals right now are averaging only 13 points a game. I think that's either last in the NFL or around the bottom in the league. So I just think that.
But the only reason why I picked the Bengals over the Browns is Romeo Cordell. He benched Brady Quinn and say he's going to bring him back. That's the same thing a dude is doing in Philadelphia. So, I don't know what to make of them.
Yeah, just get the ball to Braylon Edwards. He
And
does.
they haven't been
it.
doing it.
If he catches it.
Another guy I had on my fantasy.
Ulysses, quickly. You got
Hard luck kid.
Bengals
All right.
or Browns?
Before I say this, I just need to throw this in because, all right, Redskins fan, miss Sean Taylor to death, all right? The Browns had the pick right after us. They picked Kellen Winslow Jr., all right? And a lot of people were saying, oh, Redskins should have gone with that and whatever. You know something? Even with my man dead, I'm happier with our pick than if we'd have gotten him,
Right.
all right? But that having been said, I was gonna say the Browns, but then you all just hit me with some of this stuff. I'm like, wait a second, I'm going with the Bengals. Yeah, because you can't just go, quarterback by committee and all this kind of thing, and it's ruining guys, especially these young guys. You know, they got no confidence. You take them out, you bring them in. No.
I'm going to go with the Browns. I think the continuity of their team against the Bengals, I mean, they're still kind of getting to habit of Fitzpatrick being back there and Palmer. Granted, by that time, probably Palmer will be back. But then again, they got to get readjusted to him again. So, and like I said, Chad, I changed my name to the Spanish word and all that stuff. Johnson, I just feel like, I mean, he wants out. I can sense he wants out. And I think he'll try, but he'll just say, hey, I'm here, I'm dressed, let's play. All right.
He'll come 45 minutes late.
Yeah, that too. Next, the Raiders and the Patriots, an old AFL teams facing each other, but in a new sense. Ulysses, who do you think will win this one?
The New England Patriots. No ifs, ands, or buts. I don't know listen to me. I don't know Oakland, whoever they are. I don't know that they're going to win that game.
Mike, quickly.
I'm going with the Patriots. I just think that Matt Castle's making people forget about Tom Brady. Having a great season. Could be in the Pro Bowl.
Could be. Langley.
Well, at this time, if the Patriots are still chasing the Jets, it's definitely going to be the Patriots.
Clean sweep on this one. I think Oakland is not ready for a dominant team. Granted, that big win against the Broncos, but they're facing a very vulnerable.
Broncos ain't got
Yeah,
a
Broncos got
defense.
nothing. Lastly, St. Louis against the ATL. Langley, who do you think will win this one?
ATL.
ATL. So,
I'm
Mike.
going with the Falcons. I like the job that the first-year coach Mike Smith is doing down there.
Yeah, it seems that the Rams can't beat anybody but people in the NFC East. So we're going with Atlanta.
I think the Dirty Bird has been very vibrant, and I think Atlanta. I really think Atlanta maybe that will sneak into the playoffs. So we'll see how that works.
At the expense of the Redskins?
Yes, I really think the Redskins got a tougher road than the Falcons do. So you got to take that in mind. But we'll see what happens. We still got this last month to all played out. We could be right, could be wrong. But anyway.
See, I think you want to sit here so you can reach.
Anyway, gentlemen, doctors, I'd like to thank you for being on the show. It's been great.
That's all
We
the
all
time
went to
we have.
medical school
Hey.
together, and we were honored to be here and
Yes,
share our
yes.
expertise.
But before we go, we got one nurse to feature, our Fantasy Sports World Girl, and you can see her on his show. It's Miss Sharon Nicole. She is the host of the Fantastic Forum, and you can learn more about the Fantastic Forum at dcfantasticforum.com. You can see all their past episodes, read some blogs, and enjoy the queen of fanboy.
Can we play doctor on her?
Maybe. Anyway, folks, my time is out. See you next year.